All right, y'all. So we're getting closer and closer to the October challenge with Kiara LaShae on ifyoucanmove.com. Y'all know that I was a part of last month's challenge, the Hip Hop Tabata Season 2 challenge, and I went down a whole size from a large to a medium on my way to a small. Think it's a game, okay? You guys can go and sign up for the October challenge, which is the Trap and Tone challenge, which will start at some point in October. I'm not sure because we're still waiting on our weighted bands. Damn you, postal system. Okay, you also can purchase the Yogi Fits, which are the tights and the top. Okay, the Bustikela from Peja and Amari, which is also in the boutique if you go to teamlashe.com. So support Black owned businesses, get in shape, get your life, and yes, please, ISOT Nutriburst, get your life. I know that y'all think we out here scamming y'all, but I know y'all see us. How is a scam if you seeing the results? Okay, get your life. Look, get down below in that description box. Use my link. Try this tea out. Try out the Nutriburst. You can always get samples. You can even get your money back on some of this stuff if you don't like it, because people have done it, okay? But you have got to work out as well. Please do not think you can just drink tea and you're gonna lose weight. That's not how any of this works, okay? You have to really be on a journey where you're trying to get healthier, and this aids in that process. So, now that I've said all of that, y'all go ahead and enjoy whichever video is coming after this ad. Hey everybody, what's up? It's your girl Bondi Blue, and I am back for a review of Ratched on Netflix. This is episode 1. I'm doing this as a tester to see how you guys feel about it. If you're going to watch, do you like it? Do you want me to continue to review it? You guys' views, likes, and comments, of course, will let me know that. So let's go ahead and see if we like it. Okay, so it's a thunderous, rainy night. After mass, a man stalks a priest on his way back to his home. At their home, a group of priests, one visiting from Nigeria, have dinner and plan to go out for a movie later. Miracle on 34th Street. One priest stays behind to jack off to lingerie magazines. The man who was outside stalking knocks on the door. He says that his car has broke down, and he asks if he can use the phone. An old story. Oldest trick in a book. The priest invites him in and offers him food and drink. The Monsignor and the other priest come back. They prepare for bed when the Nigerian man goes into the bathroom and finds the man who stayed behind to jack off with his throat slit in the tub of his own blood. Then the killer bangs his head on the toilet until there isn't much of his face left. Ugh. The other priests are starting to hear the commotion. They all have long gowns on, which tells you this is a period piece. When one of the brave priests barges into the bathroom, he gets stabbed to death. Stab, stab, stab. The other man ran back into the bedroom and hid under the bed. The Monsignor walked slowly towards the door. And the killer, who played Dandy on one of the previous seasons of American Horror Story, he still creeps me out to this day. But yes, he comes walking out and he tells the Monsignor that he knows who he is. And he says his mother's name. Apparently the Monsignor raped his mom, who was a nun, and forced her out into prostitution. I said that is a huge differentiation. There has to be some breakup in the story. The Monsignor, who's now on the ground crawling and begging for his life, says that, oh no, everything your mother and I did was consensual. Well, guess what? Edmondson Tolleson, the killer, is their illegitimate child. By this time, he's crawled into the bedroom where the other priest is hiding under the bed quietly. And Edmondson Tolleson stabs and stabs and stabs and stabs. Stabs and stabs and stabs and stabs. More stabbing. It was a lot. This is Ryan Murphy and Tim Minear. And that other guy. I'm sorry, no disrespect, I just can't think of it right now. But, Tim reaches out to me and, we all know Ryan Murphy. But it's like the Murphy brothers, isn't it? I'm sorry, I love you guys anyway. Then we see Nurse Ratched, Mildred Ratched, that is, at a gas station, watching as two young people fill each other up and make out as if they're going to have sex right there on the street. What is this? Like, isn't it like 1950 or something like that? Like, chill out. The young gas attendant asking Mildred why she's going to Lucia, which is where the hospital is that Edmondson Tolleson is being transferred to. See, they think he's really crazy, so they're not going to put him in a jail cell. They're going to bring him to a mental hospital. And Mildred is on her way to that hospital in Lucia. She says, why? That's a personal question. He says, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable while, readjusting his junk while looking at the young couple making out. He has wood right in this lady's face, right in her car, right in her little car window, right there. He says he didn't mean to offend, but he's offending her in so many different ways all at once. She reminds him that she asked for the paper, and he hands it to her, and the priest killer is all over it. She tells him that he should bathe more often. His fingernails are filthy. And I was just like, yes, nice nasty shade, while giving you a life lesson. Bathe more, young man. Bathe more. Maybe your junk wouldn't be itching like it is. Look at you. Ugh. She heads to the seaside motel that she's staying at. The owner is a seedy, nosy, cheap old woman in a 1920s flopper bob cut wig. Okay, this is the same lady that played the sister, the crazy sister on So I Married an Axe Murderer. I'm a fan, okay, but she does creep me out. She always plays like a really intense, crazy person, okay? So that kind of creeps me out sometimes. She's like, I'm the best. She's like real, she does a lot. But she's an older lady in this role, so she's not going to be giving us that much, but she's giving us a lot of like annoying, like self-entitlement, all in people business. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not running a house of ill repute. And it's like, girl, please. You are ill repute. I forgot her name, so, I'll catch it later. But for right now, the motel owner will do, okay? Mildred notices her neighbor in the motel. It's a taller, stocky, aggressive looking guy. You know what I'm saying? He has on a beater and suspenders. Looks like he might wear you out, or he might think he wore you out. Not too sure yet. But he's what I would like to call rough and tumble. Mildred goes out in preparation for her job interview. She actually typed up the letter herself, and is going to show up at the hospital as if they sent it to her. Okay, smart. But she has to look the part. So she goes to purchase this like really nice mustard colored dress with a hat to match. I mean, the hair is beautifully coiffed and pinned, and the makeup is like, the look on this show, A1. But she practices her speech and how she will talk and how she will assert herself as a nurse, as Nurse Ratched, that is. When she drives up to the hospital, it's being picketed outside. Of course, everyone is upset that they're going to be housing the priest murderer. Then we see the head nurse of the hospital, Nurse Bucket. Nurse Bucket is a strong but frail looking older white lady, you know what I mean, about her business. She doesn't take any nonsense, except from Dr. Hanover, who is over the entire hospital. Yes, he is a Filipino man, okay? He has nice taste, but he's full of himself. He's an asshole. He has a God complex, and he's on dope, just so you know. But Nurse Bucket is taken from a meeting by the training nurse to see the letter that Mildred gave her, okay? The letter that Mildred typed up herself to make it seem as if they sent it to her. And then she's going to make it seem as if, the nurses are just inept and it fell through the cracks. Nurse Bucket says she doesn't know who sent this lady, but it wasn't her or Dr. Hanover, and there is no one else in his office. Mildred insists on waiting for him. I've driven a long way, and I'm here, and I'm going to be seen, in a very, in a pushy white lady entitled way. Dr. Hanover isn't in his office. He's at the governor's office waiting for the third time, hours and hours probably after the meeting was, supposed to happen, so that he can talk to the governor about funding for his hospital. And the governor keeps, pushing him off. After he leaves and goes to a restaurant to get a drink, and he sees that the governor and his assistant are there. And he tries to have a conversation with him there, and the governor is like, well, I'll give you until they bring our drinks. And then they bring the drinks, and he cuts him off. He doesn't want to hear anything else that he has to say. The assistant, who is played by Cynthia Nixon, I like her. But I also like how they have two lesbians playing lesbians. Like, I'm appreciative of that. But yes, let's get back to it. So the assistant, she kind of liked what she heard from Dr. Hanover. She thinks that she can use it as a way to promote the governor as a progressive candidate for his re-election as governor. Nurse Ratched, who's at the hospital still waiting for Dr. Hanover, walks to the bathroom and is hearing a noise down this long hallway. And she's, hearing this bumping, and she goes into a hospital room, and then, goes into the bathroom and sees that one of the nurses is getting banged out on a sink. She goes back to the main area. When Dr. Hanover gets back to the hospital, Nurse Bucket tells him about Mildred and how she says she's supposed to have an interview there today, but no one knows about this interview. He's still upset that the governor just dismissed him the way he did, so he throws a glass across the room, frightening poor Nurse Bucket. Okay, because she's in love with him, obviously. He storms out with every intention of sending Mildred away, but she scolds him for his tardiness and says that I guess she can forgive the insult if he'll see her right away. And so then he, guides her into his office because he doesn't know what else to do. There's a white lady upset with him. He has to be, appeasing. So they go into his office where Nurse Bucket is hands and knees on the floor cleaning up the glass that he broke. And Mildred says that obviously their unimpressive nursing staff, made a clerical error by not letting it be known that she was coming there for an interview. He dismisses Nurse Bucket, who did not like the comment about the nursing staff, so she brushes the dustpan against Mildred's new dress. I said, ooh, that was messy, girl, not the new dress. Mildred tells Dr. Hanover how she was in the Corps and she dealt with deranged soldiers throwing feces and ejaculate on women that they couldn't rape. I was just like, damn, sell a story, why don't you? She tells him all she wants in the world is for the human mind to be cured. And y'all know, in the 50s and 60s, the human mind being cured was, basically y'all torturing people into not being gay. A lot of the time. He says even though she is the most interesting woman that he has met while he's been there, he does not have the funding to hire another nurse. So, Nurse Ratched, who just saw a nurse getting banged out in a bathroom on a sink, took that lady's information on her way out that day and goes to her house. And she finds her husband and her daughter leaving the house with not much time to have a conversation. But she tells him that her name is Arlene Baller and she's an old friend of the nurses, and tells her to, give her a call at her motel. She's just in town for a while. So that's what she does. Mildred gets back to the hotel and tells the owner to be on the lookout for somebody calling for Arlene Baller. Before she could actually get it out, the owner was going on and on about the priest killer and how she indulges in the idea of the debauchery. You know what I'm saying? She's turned on by a killer. So that's letting us know that the owner of this motel is just as seedy as the people who will eventually frequent this spot. Okay, because right now everybody's seedy, but they're dressed nice. Eventually it'll just be seedy people. Nobody will be dressed nice. When Mildred walks outside, she runs into her neighbor, that rough and tumble man. And we find out that he's a PI. He seems to be brawn and little brains. But he slips a card under her door asking if she's married. And she allows him to come in. And he thinks he's about to tear that ass up. But she wants to role play, and it's weird role play, like you want to have a baby and I don't, and we argue about it, and then we get a divorce, and then we find out that I'm pregnant, and then I keep the baby and you die, and then 2 years later I give the baby away, leaving it on someone's doorstep. That's not a turn on, Mildred. The man is like, look, whenever you're ready to get this, you know where I'm at. As he's walking out, the owner of the motel is sitting outside the door as if she's been ear hustling this entire time to tell her that there's a call for Arlene Baller. Mildred goes to meet with the lady at a bar, and basically she tells her, I want you to quit your job. And she's like, well, what am I going to tell my husband? She's like, well, tell him that you hate it here. Okay, the town is going to shit. But quit the job before I tell him that she was getting banged out on that sink. And she was like, how do you know my husband will believe you? And it's like, child, husbands will believe anything they hear about their wives, even stuff that's not true. I'm just saying, in those days, just the fact that something like that could be out will get you beat up. So the governor's assistant, secretary, whatever, okay, Cynthia Nixon, meets with Dr. Hanover because she thinks mental health is something for the governor to stand on for re-election. I told y'all that. Dr. Hanover is getting informed that the nurse hasn't come back to work and another nurse is on vacation, and he's like, I'm sure you approved that, Nurse Bucket. It's like, why you gotta treat this lady like shit like that? She's on top of her job. You the one that's not. That's when he gets a fruit basket from Mildred, reminding him that there's somebody who can be a nurse right now. Next thing you know, boom, bow, pow, Mildred is a nurse at the hospital in preparation for the governor's visit to, see if they can use this as a way to bolster, his reelection. So while everyone's getting ready, we see what goes on at this hospital. Okay, we see them forcibly drugging a guy who later we find out is Mr. Salvatore. Along with the governor comes the press. Okay, so there's, also let's not forget Edmondson Tolson, the murderer, is real hot right now. He's about to be at this hospital as well. So it's all kind of hot ticket. Mildred and the little young girl who's a nurse's assistant are giving out drugs. And we noticed that Mildred was eyeing a drug that she wasn't supposed to. So we can pretty much guess that Mildred drugged this priest who's staying, who is in the mental hospital. She drugged this man so he would have an adverse reaction. And when the governor and the press were, there, she could save the day, make herself look good, ensure herself a position there at the hospital instead of someone who was just being brought in to help while they were, in preparation for the governor. So yes, it all worked to Mildred's favor, but Nurse Bucket noticed it. Nurse Bucket said, I think she gave him the wrong medication. And the doctor, Dr. Hanover, went and looked at their medication supply and saw that the medication that could have been used to cause the adverse reaction had the seal broken, and nobody at the hospital, has been using that certain medication. So yeah, they know what's going on. They know she's sketchy, but they need the governor's funding, and the governor likes Nurse Ratched, okay? They want to take a picture and give a check to the hospital. Dr. Hanover doesn't like to have pictures taken of himself, so he doesn't want to be, on the newspaper or anything like that. So they have Nurse Ratched do it because she was the one that kind of saved the father's life, right? So they go to take the picture, and the governor puts his hand on Mildred's backside, and she takes his hand and slides it back up and says, please don't touch me like that. Okay, and he looks at her like, he don't know whether to feel disrespected or turned on, and they take the picture. But the assistant, Cynthia Nixon, noticed that, she said something about it. So for Cynthia, that's like, oh, looks like one of my kind. Looks like a Leslie to me. So right when Dr. Hanover was about to confront Mildred about the switching of the drugs, the governor came up and wanted to talk to him about the hospital and, using it as a platform for his reelection. Right before he did that, Mildred was having a conversation with the nurse's assistant about Mr. Salvatore and how he was supposed to get out on furlough, but his family didn't want them to let him out. So basically, he's just going to be there with nobody coming for him. And it made Mildred feel sorry for him. So she has a conversation with him later on and tells him the story of her family and how they left her, and people were always telling her that eventually they were going to come back for her. And she wished how at some point somebody would have told her to stop looking for them because they were never going to come. She wished someone had given her that courtesy, showed her that grace to be honest and real with her, that no one was coming for her. So she does that for this man. She also talks about her brother and how her brother needed her, but she couldn't protect him. So when I heard that, that's when I kind of figured that Edmondson Tolson was her brother. I just figured that automatically because of the story she was telling about this brother. She tells him that there's a letter opener in Dr. Hanover's office and she can take him in there. Would he like that? And he says yes. So she walks him to Dr. Hanover's office and leaves him in there. And he kills himself. Dr. Hanover is confronting Mildred in the hallway about the drugs and the seal being broken and everything when they hear the thud. They hear Mr. Salvatore passing out. They run in and see that he's dead. And she's like, he wasn't being watched properly, trying to blame the nursing staff once again. Dr. Hanover, like I said, because he's a drug addict, is flipping out right now and doesn't have control of himself. He's having a conniption. So she tells him to calm down, okay? Snap out of it. She tells him she will take care of Mr. Salvatore. Just go out there and deal with the governor because the press and the governor are still at the hospital while all of this is going on. And the last thing that would help with him getting funding from the governor is somebody ending up dead at the hospital while they're all there. When Dr. Hanover is walking out, Mildred tells him that before the governor leaves, tell him that you'll be giving me a permanent position here. He'll like that. You know what I'm saying? So that was just, making sure that I'm going to get my job here after all of this is said and done. So while the governor is outside giving a very passionate speech to the press, Mildred takes Mr. Salvatore's body to the furnace to burn it. She runs into Nurse Bucket on the way, but Nurse Bucket is just kind of eyeing her, but still lets her go about her way. So that night, Edmondson Tolson arrives at the hospital. They put him down in a cellar that they've turned into a jail cell, and Mildred goes down there to see him. and he notices her. And he cries to her, and she's like, oh, I found you, I found you. And they put their heads together between the bars. And he says, I don't want to die, Mildred. And she says, you're not going to die. I promise. So yeah, y'all, basically Mildred has put herself in a position to become head nurse at this hospital so she can help her brother get away from murdering a whole bunch of priests. And that's Nurse Ratched. First episode. I hope y'all enjoyed this, okay? And if y'all like it, we'll continue to do it. But to give y'all a little backstory before y'all go, this is based off of One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've never seen this movie. Came out, I think, in the 70s with Jack Nicholson. And, you know, it's like the terrible, calm, you know, mean nurse at a hospital full of crazy people. Okay, but it's based off of that movie, this character. And this is kind of before she gets to, you know, that hospital from One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Okay, this is her pre-story, basically. But yeah, y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.